Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to this webinar on Fesia Grasp technology. My name is Shiva, and I'm an occupational therapist consultant specializing in spinal cord injury rehabilitation and neurological conditions. I have worked for over 18 years in the spinal cord injury rehabilitation and neuro rehabilitation in different setups, private sectors, public sectors, and charitable organizations. And I've been privileged to have worked with various technologies in upper limb and hand rehabilitation. So today I'm very excited to present to you this absolute innovation in hand rehabilitation, Fesia Grasp technology. In this webinar today, we would of course have a look at Fesia Grasp as a innovative hand rehabilitation device. We would like to share some of our clinical experience along with some case studies. The device has been developed in Spain and trialed in the UK at a private hospital called Royal Buckinghamshire Hospital. We would be very excited to present how we have used the device in various clinical scenarios. I would be joined by my colleagues from Spain too, who would like to share their experience so far. We would look at, of course, the device, but in this webinar, we would also look at some key features and challenges in upper limb and hand rehabilitation, not only in the UK, but worldwide. We would also talk about neuroplasticity, which is a huge potential in upper limb or rehabilitation as such. What are the barriers and challenges in tapping into neuroplasticity, and how fascia technology can offer opportunities to fill in some of these gaps. At the end of the webinar, we'll take questions and answers, but please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. So I'm going to stop sharing my video and we'll have a sneak peek into the device. Fesia Grasp is a wearable FES device. It has multi-field electrodes. It comes with a wearable fabric sleeve, matrix of electrodes that wrap around the forearm by Velcro. It has a stimulator which gets attached to the base of the sleeve and a tablet to configure the current. The stimulator talks to the tablet via Bluetooth. It is easy to set up a patient profiles and configure the device, changing different parameters on the screen of the tablet. The device has 32 cathodes and 8 anodes and generates 8 selective movements in the hand: wrist flexion, wrist extension, index finger flexion, extension, thumb flexion, extension, and finger flexion and extension. It can stimulate 4 different muscles in the forearm and hand. It is easy to use, on and off, and easy to configure. Fesia Grasp allows precision and selectivity to stimulate 14 muscles in the hand and wrist, which is an absolute brilliant feature we as therapists in neurorehabilitation have been waiting for years. And in all these years, especially in the past couple of decades, there have been advances, leaps and bounds in neurorehab technologies, with introduction of virtual reality, robotics, neuromuscular electrical stimulation, FES being one of it. But there has been a gap in technologies or development in hand rehabilitation per se. even though we all agree that almost all neurological conditions affect upper limb in one or the other way. The statistics say that 80% of the stroke population has upper limb deficits. Two-thirds of stroke survivors across the world have reduced arm and hand function in the acute stage. 50% of these patients continue to have hand function deficits in the chronic phase. 60% of people with multiple sclerosis have impaired hand function. 51% of spinal cord injury population in UK has upper limb involvement. And one-third of people with neurological disorders across the world fail to regain upper limb function despite receiving therapy. Despite what the statistics say, the focus on upper limb and hand rehabilitation is hugely undermined. We know that there is a direct link between upper limb impairment and quality of life. Neurological conditions compromise upper limb function, affecting an individual's ability to engage in meaningful occupation, causing marked restrictions in independence in activities of daily living, reducing participation in occupational performance. Not only this, disuse or learned non-use can suppress cortical representation of the affected limb and further inhibit any spontaneous recovery. All these factors lead to poor quality of life of an individual. And yet, the rehab outcomes in upper limb is generally very poor. We all know, and it is a fact that despite the significance of hand and upper limb in an individual's quality of life, upper limb rehab gets a poor share of intervention and rehab process. Rachel Stockley has done an extensive cross-sectional survey of UK therapists and concluded that the dose of upper limb rehabilitation in the UK is generally low, which is also backed by research from Hayward et al. Nick Ward, which is a very prominent voice in neurological conditions, also acknowledges that the biggest challenge at the moment in upper limb rehabilitation is how to provide the intensity that is required for the intervention throughout the pathway. NICE guidelines suggest 45 minutes per day of therapy, 5 days a week. And upper limb rehabilitation generally gets, on an average, 29 minutes of intervention, 3 times a week. Some hospitals even struggle to provide the NICE guidelines, or on an average 3 times intervention a week to the patients. Community support when the patient is discharged home is even more sparse. And we know that the patients continue to make progress because that's our bread and butter in our rehabilitation. But we also know that the recovery requires very specialist therapy input, which still remains a big challenge, how to provide this specialist therapy input. Our biggest issue at the moment is to provide this intervention to enhance neural recovery in upper limb rehabilitation, which is called neuroplasticity, which is neuroplasticity, as we all know in rehab, is our bread and butter. It is the ability of brain to rewire itself after a neurological injury. And there's a growing evidence and stating that the first 3 months post-stroke is where the neuroplasticity is maximum. And early intervention can extend potential recovery. In spinal cord injuries, 6 to 12 months is a crucial window where neuroplasticity can be maximized. But the situation is not all that grim. Neuroplasticity continues long-term, but it requires specific stimuli. It is dependent on high intensity, high dose. Some studies also suggest 300 to 400 repetitions of a particular movement per day for any cortical changes to take place. But we know that in our day-to-day practice, it is not possible. Neuroplasticity requires repetition, meaningful and goal-oriented activities, functionally oriented therapy. FES-based therapy can trigger neuroplasticity. It's an established evidence. The role of neuromuscular electrical stimulation is already established by research, but recent research suggests that multi-electrode based therapy has better clinical outcomes. We have seen in the slides that the evidence is clear. Upper limb impairment affects the quality of life. There have been alarming percentage of upper limb impairments in neurological conditions, but the rehab outcomes have been poor. Situation is not all that grim because research also says that neuroplasticity, although maximum in the initial or acute phase, but it continues long term and it has exponential potential for better clinical outcomes overall and upper limb and hand rehabilitation. But our key challenge is how in current rehab situation, in current healthcare situation, how to deliver this high dose, high intensity in order to tap in neuroplasticity. This is where Fesia Grasp and its unique features can be a promising tool in meeting the current unmet needs in upper limb and hand rehabilitation. So let's now have a look at the device in detail. The device comes with a garment sleeve, as we saw in the earlier video. This video takes us through how to don and doff the device. You insert the electrode in the garment, matching the shape of the electrode with the shape of the garment. Remove the plastic layers of the electrode as you would do with any electrodes and keep them aside for later use. Place the electrode and the garment on the ulnar side of the forearm. And close the garment using the Velcro fasteners. And you can see it allows free movement of the wrist and the palm. For easy access, now you insert the stimulator at the base of the sleeve. The device is ready to use after the stimulator is switched on. The stimulator connects to the tablet via Bluetooth. And you're ready to start the fascia. I'll take you through the next video, which shows how to configure the device. As mentioned earlier, the device can stimulate 14 muscles and generate 8 movements. The movements are wrist flexion extension, index finger flexion extension, finger flexion extension, thumb flexion and extension. This video shows how to configure the device, and it will take us through thumb flexion extension and finger flexion extension. Once the device is on, you can create a patient profile on the tablet, select the muscles to be stimulated on the screen, and then select the appropriate electrode represented on the screen for that particular muscle. Now set up the threshold current for each muscle separately. As when you would do muscle testing, set up the threshold current and save the profile and the parameters. You can change frequency and width of the current. The device also allows functional grasp training, cylindrical grasp, lateral prehension, tripod pinch. This video shows cylindrical grasp training, which can be used as an exercise, repetitive exercise, or incorporated into functional training. So as compared to the conventional FES device, the Fesia allows free palm movement. It allows selectivity and precision of the movements and muscles. It allows more natural grasp function. It is easy and quick in placement, allows easy integration with other rehab systems. We have used that practically, which we'll talk about later. It has a flexible textile for higher comfort. It's wireless, so less cumbersome, and has better clinical outcomes. It integrates the principles of rehabilitation. Can be task-based, allows high dose. It allows functional training, high intensity. And I would say it is another therapy tool in our kit box, which can be used as creatively as we like in our clinical practice. Fesia is a result of over a decade of technological developments. Around 20 scientific publications have been made. 9 papers have been presented at international conference and 12 journals have been published. These are the list, if anyone would like to look at the research and studies done so far. Now I would like to share some of our own clinical practice scenarios where we have used Fesia Grasp successfully. We have put together 2 case studies in this webinar today. These studies were carried out at Royal Buckinghamshire Hospital. Our first case was Mr. H. He is a police officer injured on duty in Egypt in 2014. He sustained spinal cord injury C5, C6, Asia A, and had rehabilitation at Royal Buckinghamshire Hospital. Following his discharge, he's come for 4 rehab top-ups. He comes every other year. And this time when he came, he had very precise goals, which were using cutlery in right hand. And just to give a background, he's left hand dominant now, post-injury, and has been using T notices predominantly as his as a way of using his hand. We have been using various technologies over these years and with exercise programs. So this time he wanted to specifically work on using cutlery in his right hand without any assistive device, hold a cup of tea in his right hand, to be able to write with appropriate grasp, to just work on quality of movement, reduce pain and hypersensitivity in his right hand fingers. So this is Rami. I mute the video. There we go. So this is our initial assessment, where you can see he's attempting to grasp around a cup, and you can see the compensation through his shoulder, through the wrist, which is predominantly at the moment it's T notices, and this video is him without using the FES, although it is in his arm, but he's not using it. It's an initial baseline assessment. So over 3 months, he used the device, and we will see the results later. This was his second goal, to be able to use the cutlery without any assistive aid. And you can see the pattern of his grasp here. Again, he He's compensating through his shoulder, and also at some point that affects his posture. He could grasp the fork with pure tenodesis grasp. We worked on his goals, but we had to have some therapy goals, which were SMART. The goals were use of cutlery in right hand without adaptation, tripod pinch, building quality of the movement, holding a cup and taking a sip of hot drink too, improving strength in index finger, and better positioning, enhancing function of his thumb. So these were the overall goals of his hand and function. So we used various other modalities. We used manual therapy, functional training, splinting, as you can see in various videos here. We use different types of splints, thumb wraps. We have used FES proximally and distally through fascia. He used fascia every day because he loves electric stimulation and has been using different types of devices over these years. He has used the device for over 3 months and used it in tabletop activities and functional tasks, along with strengthening, resistive training. And here we are. This is just goes to say that this has been used just like any other clinical tool. In this video, we are using resistance with current for strengthening and resistive training. So this is him 3 months post his training, and we see how now he's able to pick up the cup with much control in his hand. And this is without use of fascia. So this is just showing on the carryover, and he can take a sip too. This is him using cutlery post-training without any adaptive aid as he wanted. We particularly worked on index finger extension, and you can see the control. Of course, it's not 100% and there's more work to be done, but we managed to get some coordinated movement in his hand, in his finger, in his thumb, to enable him to cut soft food and eat it. So not only the functional outcomes we saw in the earlier videos, we observed a carryover of pain relief for up to 2 hours post-application. He suffered from neurological pain. There was an improvement in his grip strength from the initial assessment to final assessment. The grip strength increased from 6.9 kilograms to 8.7 kilograms. Finger opening improved from 2.6 kilograms to 3.3 kilograms. Lateral pinch strength improved from 1.5 kilograms to 1.7 kilograms. He showed improvement in his extensor carpi radialis, which improved from 4 to 4 plus. Extensor carpi ulnaris, improving from 4 to 4 plus on Oxford scale of muscle testing. Flexor digitorum superficialis from 1 plus to 2 plus, and extensor indicis from 3 to 3 plus. This is a second case scenario. The gentleman's name is Mo, and he sustained spinal cord injuries, Asia B at C4 level. When he presented to us, he was 5 years post-injury, and he was due for tendon transfer surgery to have tenodesis grasp. His goal were very simple: to just have a meaningful tenodesis grasp, to be able to pick finger foods, able to drink water from a plastic cup, and able to be able to hold a mobile phone. This was the picture that is playing at the moment is him at his baseline assessment. You can see that again. He's struggling to even pick a peg, and the amount of effort and compensation that's going through. This is Mo using fascia He was able to use pick up and drop up to 9 to 10 pegs before he was fatigued. He has tried various FES devices over 5 years, and none of them could elicit any meaningful tenodesis. None of them could elicit any stronger current to generate this movement. He underwent, although he was with us for a very short time, but he went through conventional hand therapy, strengthening training, but fascia was useful in strengthening training. This is him trying to improve his Fesia grasp ability. This is him without fascia. And this is him with fascia. So we use that for resistive training. Wrist extensors. We used it to isolate thumb movements, and this is him without, with fascia. So these are different scenarios, different ways where we use the device innovatively. We have used fascia for spasticity and tone management, which was quite interesting in preparing the patient before the therapist comes in for therapy and calming the tone and managing spasticity. We have used it for strengthening training, as you've seen, pain management and managing hypersensitivity, and also for patients who haven't used FES device or are anxious with the current. We have used the habituation feature, which is one of the features of the device that sends low intensity electric stimulation throughout in all the electrodes. We have used it in combination with other FES devices. This is our team in the UK. Let's see what our clinical colleagues have to say from Spain.
Hello, my name is Priscilla Bonina. My name is Priscilla Bonina. I am a physical therapist specialized in neurorehabilitation and robotics, and I'm also a clinical specialist here at Fesia Technology. Today, I would like to present you a use case of Fesia Clinic, the story of P. P came to Fesia Clinic because she wanted to regain hand dexterity after having an ischemic stroke in September 2019. At Fesia Clinic, we conducted a functional rehabilitation program aiming to recover selective movements to later be able to include them into functional grasps. The movements were assisted by applying functional electrical stimulation with our device Fesia Grasp in combination with constraint therapy, mirror therapy, and functional tasks. P ended up training more precise grips while improving her agility, speed, and accuracy of movement, which allowed her to start using her hand on the activities of the daily living. Nowadays, P has new objectives and keeps working on reaching her goals.
Let's see what our users have to say themselves.
Hi, I am Rami. I have a bullet injury. I am C6, C7. After injury, I found my right hand so weak and I couldn't hold objects and something like this. Also, the grip in my hands is so weak and it's hyperextend. Before, I tried a lot of electric stimulation, but the problem is it didn't give me the right electric stimulation in my hands, doing the grip is so strong. but after Fesia, when I using it, I found this gain in specific muscles in my hand. That's make my grip is a little bit, and I can control the grips. I found Fesia is the best thing that because it's gain to the muscles that we didn't reach before, such as in thumb here, because thumb is a little bit weak, I couldn't, and also in index, there is a little few muscles inside, they couldn't reach it.
These are some of the feedbacks from patients we were not able to video. I can feel my hand again. No other FES device could make my hand and fingers move. I can get tenodesis and actually pick an object. I wish I could use Fesia Grasp at home every day. Fesia technology is based on the principles of neurological rehabilitation, rehabilitation of upper limb and hands. It is based on the concepts of functional electrical stimulation and multiple electrode stimulation, which is an established tool endorsed by NICE guidelines and Cochrane. I hope you enjoyed the webinar and found it useful. And I hope it gave you some ideas of how creatively FES Fesia device can be used in our clinical practice. Our team in UK would be happy to address any questions that you may have, or if you want to organize a demonstration. Thank you so much for your time today. Bye-bye.